I cried, not from pain, but from humiliation. After 3 weeks in the hospital, I came home, only to find a brand new refrigerator, every shelf marked with the same name, Sabrina. No welcome home, no note, just stickers. Sabrina milk, Sabrina meat, Sabrina juice. My daughter-in-law's name plastered over everything, in my own kitchen. And in that moment I knew my kindness had been mistaken for weakness, and they were about to pay the price for it. The cab stopped in front of my house just as the sky began to darken. The driver didn't even offer to help with my bag. He didn't have to. I moved slowly, carefully, each step still reminding me that I'd almost died 11 days ago. 11 long, empty days. The cold air burned my lungs as I paid him and stood in front of the small white house that had once been my pride. The porch light was off. No one waited at the door. No car idling in the driveway. No warm face peeking from the window. "It's fine," I whispered to myself. Maybe they're inside. Maybe they just didn't hear the cab. But a part of me already knew the truth. I opened the door slowly. The hinges creaked. Even they sounded surprised to see me alive. The house smelled faintly of bleach and air freshener, that artificial spring meadow scent I hated. I blinked, letting my eyes adjust to the dim hallway. The silence was so complete that I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears. And then I heard it. A faint humming sound. Familiar, but different. I followed it to the kitchen. That's when I saw it. A refrigerator. A second refrigerator. Big, silver, and new. The kind you see in appliance stores with energy-efficient stickers and digital temperature screens. It stood right next to my old cream-colored fridge, the one my husband and I had bought on clearance the year Daniel started school. 2 fridges side by side, like strangers forced to share the same space. But that wasn't what froze me. Every shelf, every drawer, every compartment of the new fridge had yellow sticky notes, and on each of them, in bold black letters, one word, Sabrina. Over and over again. On the butter shelf, the crisper drawer, even on the freezer handle. Sabrina, Sabrina, Sabrina. Her name everywhere, like a brand, like a warning. My throat tightened. I stood there staring, unable to move. My mind tried to make sense of it. Maybe they just bought it. Maybe the labels were temporary. Then Daniel walked in. He looked exactly like his father used to at that age. Same jawline, same careless charm, but his eyes had turned cold. He had a beer in his hand and a remote tucked under his arm. "Hey," he said casually as if I'd just come home from the grocery store. Behind him came Sabrina, barefoot, in silk pajamas, holding a black marker and a roll of sticky notes. "Oh," she said when she saw me, not surprise, not joy, just mild annoyance. "You're home." I was home. My heart swelled with the instinct to forgive, to smile, to believe they cared, until Sabrina tore off another sticky note, scribbled something on it, and slapped it onto the fridge door. "Wait," I said, my voice thin, dry. "What's all this?" Daniel took a sip of beer before answering. "Our fridge, Mom. For our stuff." I blinked. "Your fridge?" "Yeah, we bought it, for organization. We don't want to mix our things up with yours." Sabrina stepped closer, kneeling to stick labels inside the drawers, each one bolder, uglier than the last. "It's nothing personal," she said lightly. "Just practical. You have your groceries. We have ours." Her tone made me feel small, ridiculous, like I was the intruder here, not her. I could feel my pulse throbbing against the fresh stitches under my blouse. "But this is my house," I whispered. Daniel gave a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah, Mom, your house. But we live here too, remember? And honestly, with your, what do you call it? Social Security? You can't really afford the kind of food we like." Sabrina straightened, her hair perfectly in place. "It's not about money," she said sweetly. "It's about standards." She opened the new fridge with a smile that could slice through bone. Inside, it gleamed with expensive cuts of steak, imported cheeses, bottles of white wine, fruit in glass bowls. I glanced at my own old fridge, half empty, filled with leftovers, milk nearing expiration, bread in a plastic bag. 2 worlds, 1 kitchen. Narration. That moment, I realized something had shifted forever. I wasn't just unwelcome, I was unwanted. Sabrina clapped her hands, satisfied with her labeling job. "See? Organized. No confusion. Everyone's happy." "Happy?" I murmured. The word tasted bitter. Daniel threw his empty beer can into the trash and shrugged. "Come on, Mom. Don't make a thing out of it. We're just trying to keep peace around here." "Peace," I repeated. "Is that what this is?" He didn't answer. He'd already left the kitchen, heading back to the living room where the TV was blaring some reality show. Sabrina followed, her perfume lingering, sharp, artificial, suffocating. And I stood there, alone, between two refrigerators, between two versions of my life, the one I'd built and the one they were erasing. Later that night, I wandered through my own home like a guest. Their voices floated down the hallway, laughter and the clink of wine glasses. I stopped outside my old bedroom. The door was half open. It looked nothing like before. New curtains, new bedding. My framed photo of Daniel as a child was gone. In its place, a mirror with lights, Sabrina's vanity. I turned away before they could see me. Back in my little room, the air smelled faintly of dust and medicine. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, feeling the stitches pull tight against my skin. I'd fought so hard to stay alive in that hospital. For what? To come home to this? I wanted to cry, but the tears refused to fall. All I could do was stare at the cracked ceiling and listen to their laughter echo through the walls. Narration. Every sound was a reminder of what I'd lost, of what they'd taken. My home had become their playground, my dignity their joke. A door slammed, then Sabrina's voice, shrill, laughing. "Daniel, did you see your face when she saw the fridge?" I swear she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Their laughter rose again, muffled but unmistakable. I pressed a pillow over my ears, but it didn't block the words that followed. "She won't last long anyway," Sabrina said. "Once she's gone, this place will finally be ours." My heart stopped. Daniel chuckled. "Let's not rush it. We'll get there soon enough." That night, sleep wouldn't come. I lay awake, staring into the darkness, feeling something inside me harden. The woman they mocked, the one they thought too weak, too fragile. She died in that hospital. What came home was someone else. Narration. They thought I was finished, but I was only beginning. I used to believe love could excuse everything. Every insult, every betrayal, every wound. I'd worked 35 years in a manufacturing plant, my hands raw and my spine bent to give Daniel the life I never had. When his father died, I told myself he'd be my purpose, my reason. And for a while, he was. He called, he visited, he laughed like he used to. Then came Sabrina. All perfume and smiles, dripping with ambition. She wanted more. Always more. The wedding drained my savings. The emergency calls took the rest. "Mom, can you lend us just 2,000 more?" "Mom, Sabrina's car broke down." "Mom, the landlord's being impossible." Mom, until I became less of a person and more of a wallet with a pulse. Narration. Love had turned me blind, and blindness had turned me poor. When they moved in temporarily, I welcomed them with open arms. I didn't see the takeover coming. One room, one drawer, one right at a time. Now I stood here, in the ruins of that kindness, finally understanding what it had cost me. At dawn, I walked into the kitchen again. The world outside was still gray, silent. The new fridge hummed softly, arrogant as ever. The sticky notes glowed faintly under the weak light. Sabrina. I peeled one off, just one. It came away easily, leaving no mark. I stared at it for a long time. The ink was thick, smug, ownership written in every curve. Narration. Names have power, but they can also be erased. I crumpled the note in my fist and dropped it into the trash. It landed on Daniel's empty beer can with a dull clink. And for the first time in years I smiled, a small, sharp smile. Because that sound, that tiny collision, wasn't the sound of defeat. It was the sound of something waking up inside me. Something dangerous. Something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. They thought I was weak. They mistook silence for surrender. But they forgot. Even the quietest woman remembers how to fight. The next morning I woke before the sun. My back ached, my stitches pulled. But pain was just another reminder. I was still alive. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the new refrigerator, that arrogant sound that filled the kitchen like an insult. I stood there barefoot on the cold tiles, staring at those yellow labels again. Sabrina. Inner voice. They think I'm invisible. They think I'm weak. But if I could survive that hospital bed alone, I can survive this. I opened my old fridge. Milk, a few eggs, half a loaf of bread. Then I opened theirs. Inside glowed a small kingdom. Salmon wrapped in paper, imported cheeses, 3 bottles of wine, chocolates, shrimp, even strawberries in crystal bowls. I closed it slowly. The door clicked shut with a soft thunk, but it felt like thunder inside my chest. That was the moment I decided to stop feeling sorry for myself. That was the moment I decided to find out everything. At exactly 8 o'clock, there was a knock. 3 sharp taps. I opened the door to see Ruth Alvarez, my neighbor, her gray hair tied back, face serious. She held a small thermos of coffee. "Morning," she said softly. "You didn't sleep, did you?" I shook my head. "How could I?" Ruth looked over her shoulder before stepping inside. "I heard them last night. They were laughing again, talking about the house." Her words came slowly, each one cutting deeper. Inner voice, I knew it. I knew the moment I saw those labels. They weren't just separating groceries. They were dividing lives. Ruth sat down at the table. "Listen, Margaret, I have a friend, a lawyer, retired but good. His name's Henry Whitaker. He helps people who are being taken advantage of, elderly cases, family fraud, things like that." For a moment, pride burned in me like a warning. "I don't need a lawyer," I started. But Ruth's eyes didn't blink. "Yes, you do." I stared down at my trembling hands, the faint bruise from the IV still visible. Maybe she was right, maybe I did. Inner voice, it wasn't about fighting them for money, it was about fighting for my dignity. "Call him," I said finally. Ruth smiled, relieved. "I'll tell him to come this afternoon. 3 o'clock. After she left, I began to search, not for jewelry or money, for truth. I started with the living room. Their clothes were everywhere. Expensive brands, designer bags, shoes lined up like soldiers. Receipts lay on the coffee table, half crumpled. Steakhouse dinners, $120. A spa payment, electronics. I gathered them all. Then I went into their bedroom, my old bedroom. Opening the door felt like entering enemy territory. The smell of Sabrina's perfume hit me first, sweet, chemical, choking. I pulled open drawers carefully, shoes, dresses, purses, each worth more than my monthly pension. I found a jewelry box, inside, receipts, warranty cards, tags still attached. How could they afford all this? My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to keep going. In the nightstand, I found a stack of bank envelopes, all opened. I recognized the logo, my bank. And then I saw my name. Margaret Cole. A credit card statement, but not mine. Balance, $950. Inner voice, slow, angry whisper. They used my name. Every charge was for things I'd never bought, clothes, restaurants, online orders. I sat down on the edge of the bed, heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Daniel, what have you done?" It took me nearly 2 hours to go through everything. By noon, I had a pile of documents spread out across the bed. Receipts, loan papers, account statements, all with my forged signature. When I saw the last one, my blood ran cold. It was a loan application, $50,000, using my house as collateral. Pending approval. Inner voice. They weren't waiting for me to die. They were taking the house while I was still breathing. My fingers dug into the paper until it crumpled. I looked up at the mirror, caught my own reflection. Pale, wild-eyed, furious. And for the first time, I didn't look weak. I looked dangerous. I gathered every paper and hid them under the mattress in my sewing room. Then I sat by the window, waiting for Henry. Pursues direct. At 3 sharp, Ruth returned with Henry Whitaker. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit though it was warm outside, carrying a leather briefcase that looked older than I was. His handshake was firm, his gaze direct. "Mrs. Cole," he said kindly. "Ruth told me everything. May I sit?" I nodded. He listened while I explained, showing him every piece of paper. As he read, his expression hardened. "These are serious," he said finally. "This isn't just family conflict. This is fraud." He tapped the loan application. "Forgery of documents. Financial elder abuse. If we move quickly, we can stop the loan before it's approved." "How?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning, we go to the bank. You revoke all authorizations, change your passwords, and freeze your credit." Ruth put a gentle hand on mine. "See, you're not alone," Henry continued. "We'll also need evidence, photos, timestamps, proof of their spending beyond their means. Can you take pictures of their belongings discreetly?" "Yes," I said. "I can." Inner voice. They thought I didn't know how to use a phone camera. They thought wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I moved through the house in the dark, photographing everything. The designer boxes, the wine bottles, the tangle of luxury perfumes on Sabrina's dresser. Each click of the camera was like a heartbeat. Each photo, a promise. When I reached the kitchen, I hesitated in front of the new fridge. The label still mocked me. I snapped one last picture, a close-up of her name. Sabrina. Then I whispered, not for long. Inner voice, every label she put on that fridge, I'll replace with a signature on her confession. By dawn, I had over 100 photos and a folder of evidence that could bury them both. The following evening, they came home later than usual, shopping bags in hand, laughter spilling through the door. I was in the living room, sitting calmly with a cup of tea. "Hey, Mom," Daniel said, distracted. "Why are you sitting here in the dark?" "We need to talk," I said quietly. Sabrina sighed. "Can it wait? We've had a long day." I looked straight at her. "This won't take long." She rolled her eyes and plopped the shopping bags onto the couch. I could see the logo, Louis Vuitton. "Where did you get the money for that?" I asked. Sabrina smiled without looking at me. "Credit. Why?" "My credit," I said. Her head snapped up. Daniel froze. I set my cup down slowly. "We're going to the bank tomorrow. Together. I want to review every transaction you made on my account." Daniel's face changed, a flicker of fear, then anger. "Mom, you're imagining things." "No," I said firmly. "I'm remembering things. Big difference." Sabrina crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic." I smiled faintly. "Maybe, but tomorrow I'll be dramatic at the bank." The silence that followed was heavy, electric. Then Daniel said quickly, "I can't. I have an interview tomorrow." "Then the day after," I said. Sabrina muttered something under her breath, too quiet to catch. I didn't ask. I'd already won this round. Inner voice, let them lie, let them scramble. The more they deny, the deeper they dig. I stood up, smoothing my blouse. "Good night," I said, and left the room. Behind me, I heard them whispering. Frantic, angry. But I didn't care, because for the first time in years, I was the one in control. In my small room, I sat on the bed and opened my phone. One by one, I uploaded the photos to a hidden drive. Evidence, proof, my armor. Then I looked at the sticky note I'd kept from the fridge. Sabrina. I flattened it, smoothed the creases, and pinned it to the wall above my desk. Inner voice, steady, calm. Every empire starts with one symbol. Hers began with this label. Mine will end with it. Outside, their voices rose again, but I no longer cared. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin, and I would not be the one who lost. Final narration, low tone, fade out. They built their comfort on my silence, but silence, once broken, can burn louder than any scream. By late afternoon, the sky had turned the color of old bruises, purple sinking into gray, gray into a chalky white that felt like the breath before a storm. Ruth texted, "We're outside." Henry followed with, "Ready when you are." I was ready. I set 3 chairs in the living room facing the front door, not side by side, angled like a panel in a courtroom. My old clock ticked on the mantel. Every second counted down to the moment my house became mine again. I placed a folder on the coffee table. Inside, photographs of boxes and bottles and receipts, a printed copy of the bank's fraud report, the pending home equity loan with the forged signature, screenshots of online orders, timestamps, everything. I labeled each section with sticky tabs, red for theft, blue for forgery, yellow for elder abuse. Sabrina loved labels. Tonight I brought my own. Ruth stepped in first, presence steady as a hand on my back. Henry came behind her. Suit pressed, eyes clear, briefcase in hand. He took the center chair. Ruth sat at my right. I stood. "Will you be okay?" Ruth asked. "I am okay," I said, and surprised myself with how true it sounded. Henry opened his briefcase and laid out 3 neatly stacked piles of paper, each clipped, each titled. He placed a small recorder beside them. "In Ohio, one-party consent," he murmured for the record. Tires whispered against gravel, headlights cut through the lace curtains. The front door shivered with the force of Sabrina's voice, laughter too loud for a quiet street. They stepped inside mid-conversation, mid-laugh, shopping bags, designer logos winking under the porch light. Then they saw us, and silence fell. "What's going on?" Daniel asked, eyebrows already gathering into a frown. Sabrina didn't ask, she assessed. Her gaze skimmed the chairs, the papers, Henry's briefcase, my face. She set her bags down slowly, as if she were lowering a weapon to the floor. Henry rose. "Good evening, Henry Whitaker, legal counsel for Miss Cole." Daniel looked from Henry to me. "Mom, why is there a lawyer in our living room?" "Hour," I said softly. "Sit." He didn't move. Sabrina did. Arms crossed, chin lifted. We're tired, we don't have time for— Sit, I repeated, and even I heard how different my voice sounded, low, still, ironed flat. Daniel sat. Sabrina followed, the silk of her blouse catching the lamp light like water. Henry pressed the red button. We'll keep this efficient. Miss Cole has raised serious concerns regarding unauthorized transactions, identity forgery, and the attempted encumbrance of her property. We'll review evidence. You'll have a chance to respond. Sabrina laughed without teeth. You can't be serious. Ruth leaned forward, hands folded. We are. Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it when I lifted a single finger, the same gesture I'd used when he was 6 and about to touch a hot stove. My hand no longer trembled. Henry slid a stack across the table. Exhibit A, bank statements. Transfers totaling $42,000 over 24 months to accounts ending in 7123 and 0998. Both yours, Mr. Cole. ATM withdrawals in neighborhoods where Miss Cole has never been. Recurring charges for services she didn't authorize, premium streaming, wine subscriptions, concierge dining club. And this, he tapped the page, a credit card in Miss Cole's name with a $10,000 limit, now at $9,950. Daniel tried to smile. It looked like toothache. I manage her finances, she asked me to. I asked you to read the bills when my eyes were dilated from surgery, I said. I did not ask you to open new accounts. I did not ask you to buy $400 shoes with my name. Sabrina scoffed. Maybe she forgot what she signed. Exhibit B, Henry said, sliding the next stack. Forgery. He placed 2 pages side by side, my real signature on a DMV renewal, a shaky copy on the loan application. Different slant, different pressure, inconsistent loops, and the timing, filed while Miss Cole was hospitalized. Sabrina's voice turned syrupy. That was just to have options in case of emergencies. We were going to ask her. You celebrated the night I came home, I said. I heard the glasses. Ruth heard your words. All eyes turned to Ruth. She didn't blink. I heard you say, when she's gone, the house is ours. And you, she looked at Daniel, said you hoped it would be soon. Daniel flushed, then went pale. That's taken out of context. What context makes it decent? I asked. No one answered. I opened my folder. One by one, I laid photographs on the table. The second fridge, a close-up of Sabrina, the row of designer bags, the bottles of wine, the wristwatch case, the casino stub, 500 in a single night, the credit statements, the loan with my name scrawled wrong. Sabrina's lips thinned. Pictures of our things. So what? So this, Henry said, raising a final page. Lifestyle beyond declared income, paired with theft, paired with forgery. The pattern is clear. Daniel reached for his old charm. Mom, we can fix this. Tell the nice lawyer we don't need to make it ugly. We're family. Family, I repeated, letting the word cool in the room. A family is not a stomach that eats alone in a house it didn't pay for. Ruth's hand found mine under the table. Steady. Warm. Henry placed 2 documents side by side. Option 1. You sign an admission of responsibility for the unauthorized use of Miss Cole's identity and funds. You vacate the property tonight. You agree to repay $42,000 with 5% interest on a schedule beginning within 30 days. In return, Miss Cole does not file a criminal complaint at this time. Sabrina's chair scraped. Absolutely not. Henry tapped the other page. Option 2. We notify the police tonight. Charges: identity fraud, theft, financial elder abuse, attempted real estate fraud through forgery. A bank manager is prepared to confirm irregularities. We have a witness, he nodded to Ruth, for your statements about taking the house when Miss Cole dies. Daniel swallowed. This is insane. What's insane? I said quietly. Is buying wine I can't pronounce with the savings I spent 35 years earning. Sabrina leaned toward me, voice low. You think you're powerful with him here? You're old. You can't even take care of yourself. You'll die alone in this dusty house. I'd rather die in a house I own than live one more day in a house you label. Henry slid a final envelope across. Notice to quit and demand for possession. You have 2 hours to pack personal items and leave. If you remain, we'll call the police to remove unauthorized occupants. The clock is running. The clock on the mantel answered like a gavel. Daniel stared at the papers. His hands trembled, then flattened. We can talk about the payment plan, but we can't leave tonight. You can, Henry said, and you will. He looked at me, not at Henry, not at Ruth. For a second, the boy I raised peered through the frightened man. Mom, please. The ache behind my ribs surged, then steadied into something clearer than pain. No. Sabrina stood with the precision of a blade. Fine, we'll leave. She snatched her bags. But I'm taking my things. Personal clothing and effects, Henry said. Anything purchased with Miss Cole's funds is subject to recovery. It's documented. Document this, she muttered, sweeping past me toward the kitchen. I followed. She threw open the new fridge and began loading wine, cheeses, meats into canvas totes with vicious efficiency. The yellow labels gaped on empty shelves like open mouths. Enjoy your milk and bread, she sneered. I lifted a label, Sabrina, and pressed it flat on the counter. Enjoy your conscience. She laughed without joy. We sold that for a down payment. On what? On the life we deserved. You built it with my bones, I said. I'm taking them back. Upstairs, drawers slammed, hangers clanged. Daniel moved slower than Sabrina. He paused in the doorway of their bedroom, looking up at the photos on the dresser. Ruth shadowed him quietly, not speaking, just present, the way a lighthouse is present for a boat that hasn't yet admitted it's lost. I stayed downstairs, back straight, hands still. Henry listed items carried out, photographed them as they crossed the threshold. Names and numbers, facts and light. Daniel came down with a suitcase and an old shoebox. He stopped at the edge of the rug. Do you remember pancakes on Sundays? He asked the heir. Yes, I said. I remember buying mix with coupons. I remember you spilling batter and your father laughing while he cleaned it so I wouldn't have to. He opened the shoebox. Inside, him at 8, missing 2 teeth, wearing a paper crown. He closed the box gently and kept walking. Sabrina swept through like weather. Hot, petty weather, 2 more bags in hand. She bumped my chair on purpose. Oops. 1 hour remaining, Henry said calmly. At the door, Daniel hesitated. If we sign option 1, can we come back later for the TV? No, I said, but I bought it. With what? Henry asked. Your salary? Daniel stared at the floor. Fine. Sabrina's trunk slammed. Greg, move it. He looked at me one last time. Mom, I'm sorry. I nodded once. So am I. They sat in the car with the engine idling, the breath of the machine fogging in the cooling air. Then the car rolled back down the drive and turned onto the street. Silence pooled in the house. A bird called once from the maple out front, as if to check whether the world had changed. It had. My knees softened all at once, as if they'd been waiting for permission. Ruth was there before I fell. She guided me to the chair, held my shoulders, let me cry. I cried for the girl who believed love would be enough. I cried for the woman who learned it wasn't. I cried for the mother who had carried a boy on her hip and never imagined she'd have to carry him out of her house in a suitcase years later, even if only in her mind. Henry waited. When I could breathe again, he spoke gently. We'll file the civil agreement tomorrow. No criminal complaint for now. If he misses the first payment, we proceed. I nodded. Tomorrow we also go to the bank. We do. He packed the evidence as neatly as a surgeon's tools. Tonight, you sleep. I looked toward the kitchen. The new fridge stood open, light shining on emptiness. The old fridge hummed softly, steady as always. I think I'll make tea, I said. Ruth smiled. I'll boil the water. We moved around each other with gentle competence, like women who have built and rebuilt homes more than once. After they left, I walked through the house with a trash bag and a damp cloth. I peeled stray Sabrina labels from the door and countertops. I scrubbed rings from the coffee table where glasses had sweated, and nobody had bothered to wipe them. I straightened the rug, wound the clock, opened the windows. Night air slid in, cool and clean. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere else someone laughed. The sounds of other lives drifted through the dark and did not wound me. In the kitchen, I closed the new fridge and pulled the plug from the wall. I set my palm on its steel skin. It was already losing warmth. You don't live here, I told it softly. Not anymore. I opened the old fridge, took out milk, and set it on the counter. I found my tea tin in the back of a cabinet, still there, patient, waiting. While the water heated, I smoothed one last yellow sticky note, Bruh, Sabrina, and pressed it in my notebook. Beneath it I wrote, Exhibit D, the day I remembered my name. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Give us a week, we'll figure it out. No name, no apology. Daniel. I typed, Option 1 is available for 30 days. Payments begin in 30. You will not return here without my permission. Typing dots pulsed, then vanished. The kettle clicked. I poured water over the tea bag and watched color bloom. amber deepening toward mahogany, a small miracle I'd seen 1,000 times and never honored. I carried the tea to the window and looked at the dark lawn, the maple tree holding up the sky the way trees do, without complaint. My house smelled like soap and steam. My house sounded like wind and a clock. My house felt like a body exhaling after years of holding its breath. I didn't say I felt happy, I didn't say I felt safe, but I said to no one and to everyone, enough. And the walls, the floorboards, the old fridge, everything that knew me before they tried to rename my life, seemed to answer back, enough. I woke before the sun, the house still tasting like quiet. The new fridge sat unplugged in the corner, a silver monument to arrogance, losing its last breath of cold. I touched its skin. It was cooler than last night, warmer than I wanted. Inner voice, warmth leaves slowly, so does fear. At 7:40, Ruth's knock came in 3 soft taps. Henry's car idled at the curb, steady as a promise. I put on my coat, slid the folder of evidence under my arm, and locked the door. The click sounded like a sentence closing. We didn't talk much in the car. Daylight grew on the houses like a bruise fading. When we turned into the bank lot, the glass facade mirrored a sky trying to forgive itself for yesterday's storm. "Ready?" Henry asked. "I was ready last night," I said. He smiled, as if that answer mattered. The bank manager, Mr. Marcus Johnson, met us at a small conference room with a pitcher of water and a face that already looked sorry. "We've reviewed the preliminary flags," he said. "There are many." Henry set the recorder down. "With Miss Cole's consent, we're documenting." I signed the consent form. My hand didn't shake. Marcus typed, screens changing like weather. Unauthorized transfers totaling $42,000 over 24 months. ATM withdrawals far from Miss Cole's usual area. A credit card opened in her name. Recurring charges. Premium services, dining, deliveries. And this. He turned the monitor. The pending home equity loan. Digital signature inconsistent with Miss Cole's known signature. Filed while she was hospitalized. I stared at my name bent wrong on the screen. It felt like seeing my face in a stranger's mirror. "Freeze everything," Henry said. "Close what must be closed. Reissue what must be reissued. Remove any third-party access. New passwords, new PINs, new two-factor on a new phone line." Marcus nodded, already moving. "We'll also launch a formal fraud claim. You'll sign affidavits for each item. We'll contact merchants. Many charges should be reversible. The loan will be canceled." "How much comes back?" I asked. He didn't lie. "Not all, but a significant portion." I signed and signed and signed again. Each signature felt less like surrender and more like return. Inner voice. I thought I'd lost my name. Turns out I'd only misplaced it under other people's wants. When we finished, Marcus leaned forward. "Miss Cole, I'm required to ask, do you want to pursue criminal charges?" I looked at Henry. He didn't push. He simply let the question sit in the air between us like a scale. "Not today," I said. "Today I want my life back." "Understood," Marcus said, and I believed him. As we left, my phone buzzed, a fraud alert banner sliding across the screen. Declined, $1,287.64, luxury boutique, card locked. Time-stamped 10 minutes prior. Sabrina was shopping on the way out of my life. I let the alert sit there like proof the world had decided to stand on my side for once. Back home, Henry walked the perimeter of my life like a gentle inspector. We changed the front door cylinder. We reset the garage keypad. He helped me create a new email address, new phone password, new cloud. We turned off location sharing. Daniel had turned on to keep you safe. "Predators call cages safety," Henry said dryly. I laughed, a short, shocked sound I hadn't heard in months. We installed a small camera over the porch. "Just in case," Ruth said, handing me a bowl of soup she'd brought unasked, the way real care arrives, quietly, hot, enough for 2. At noon, the doorbell rang. Henry glanced at the porch cam feed. Daniel stood with a plain envelope. Alone. I opened the door but left the chain on. We looked at each other through the slice of space strangers allow. "Mom," he said. "Daniel." I signed option 1. He held up the envelope. "I don't have money yet, but I'll start. 30 days. Henry opened the chain and let him pass the envelope. Nothing more. "Payments are electronic. Routing info is on the schedule inside," he said. Daniel nodded. His eyes had the rawness of someone who hadn't slept. "Sabrina's gone," he added too quickly, like a defense. She thinks you're bluffing. She'll be angry." "I'm not bluffing," I said. "I know." He swallowed. "I know." He looked past me into the house that had raised him and that he had tried to rename. I closed the door, gently, firmly, and slid the chain back into place. Boundaries, the simplest technology we forget how to use. The afternoon stretched thin and clean. I gathered the last of the yellow sticky notes, Sabrina, from drawers, from the lip of a shelf, from the back of a cabinet door where she'd hidden one like a joke for a future laugh. I filled a small paper bag with them. It was heavier than it looked. Inner voice, labels always weigh more than the paper they're written on. I took the bag to the trash, then stopped. Instead, I slid it into a shoebox and wrote evidence on the lid. Not for court, for memory. Someday, if doubt ever tried to make me small again, I would open that box and remember what I survived. At 3, Henry returned with printed copies. The signed admission, the repayment schedule, the non-contact clause. Keep one set in a fireproof folder, he said. I'll store the rest. Do you think he'll pay? I asked. I think consequences teach better than lectures, he said, and I think he taught the only lesson that matters. Ruth arrived with hydrangea cuttings. For the front, she said. So the house sees new things growing. We planted them together, knees in the dirt, the way women turn grief into something that can bloom without apologizing. At sunset, my phone lit again. Unknown number. I let it ring out. It came back immediately. I answered and didn't speak. Breath, a soft click. Then Sabrina's voice, varnished rage. You think this is over? You ruined him, she hissed. He ruined himself, I said. I stopped donating tools. You're a bitter old woman living on crumbs. I'm a quiet woman who found the volume button. She laughed, sharp, joyful at her own meanness. You'll die alone. Then I'll die honest. Silence answered, the kind that tells you a person has discovered you are no longer movable furniture. She hung up. I blocked the number. The room felt bigger by an inches you can't measure distance. The porch cam pinged at 8:12. A car idled across the street, lights off. The camera saw just enough to make a choice. I called Henry. He called the non-emergency line. A patrol car rolled by 10 minutes later. The idling car left. Some nights all you need is the possibility of consequence. On the 30th morning, my phone chimed. Deposit received. 300. Gregory D. Cole. He'd used his middle name. The D made him look like a stranger who had wandered into our life by accident. I expected triumph. Instead, I felt a small, careful grief for the boy I'd taught to write that middle initial, who'd laughed when the curve looked like a fishhook. Inner voice. Payment is not repair. It is proof you've learned to hold the broom. I texted one sentence to the number on the agreement. Received. Month 1. No thank you. Not yet. Gratitude would come later, if it came at all. That afternoon, Marcus called from the bank. We've recovered $18,000 through reversals and merchant disputes, he said. The remainder is in process. 18,000, a number with shoulders. I sat down on the kitchen chair and placed my hand on the old fridge, faithful, humming. I can fix the roof, I heard myself say. You can, he answered as if he'd been in my kitchen with me. Contractors came with tape measures and promises. They replaced a section of roof. They fixed the bathroom leak that had taught me to place towels like rituals. They repaired the garage door that had groaned like an old animal whenever I tried to coax it open. I kept the house plain. I bought curtains with small flowers, because life should have small flowers. I kept the old couch because it knew our shape. I moved my sewing machine back into the big bedroom. I stood in the doorway and said out loud, "This is my room." At night, I opened windows and let the new quiet into the drywall. Houses exhale too. You just have to give them lungs. Ruth and I drank tea on the porch. She told me about her daughter, California, 2 kids, a good man. I told her about the time Daniel lost his first tooth into a bowl of popcorn and insisted the tooth fairy owed him for the popcorn too. We laughed, the kind that doesn't feel like theft from anyone. On a Sunday, I walked past the park where families let their weekends run in circles on green grass. A boy chased a kite and shouted a name that wasn't mine, but my heart answered anyway. When I got home, a letter waited in the mailbox, blue ink on a white envelope, my name correct, the letters even. Daniel's handwriting, slower than it used to be. Inside, no excuses, no bargaining. He wrote about a second job, overnight shifts loading trucks, about therapy. I didn't know I could be taught to think before I think. About looking at old photos and feeling the tug of what used to hold us together. At the bottom, I don't expect forgiveness, Mom. I expect to pay. I hope to heal. I'll be on your porch at noon the first Sunday of next month. If you want me to leave, I will. If you want to talk, I'll listen. If you want to say nothing, I'll sit. I folded the letter once, twice. My hands didn't shake. My breath did. Inner voice. Forgiveness isn't a door. It's a gate with a latch only you can lift when the weather is right. I put the letter in the fireproof folder with the agreements and the schedule and the copies of my name done right and wrong. Not to hide it, so it would survive with the other things that mattered now. That evening, I stood at the sink rinsing teacups. The porch light threw a soft halo onto the walk. The hydrangeas we planted tilted blue heads toward the last light of the day. The old fridge hummed. The new one, unplugged, had become a mirror. Nothing more dangerous than whatever you decided to put in front of it. I dried my hands. I sat at the kitchen table. I took out a small blank card and wrote 4 words. Noon is fine. Come. I sealed the envelope, addressed it, and set it beside my keys. The house felt larger than square feet, wide in the way a chest feels when a breath finally goes all the way in. Not safe. Not finished. But mine. Justice steadies the ground. Love, if it comes back honest, teaches you how to walk on it again. The morning Daniel promised to come, I woke to a silence that didn't hurt. The sky was pale gold. The air smelled of rain left behind somewhere else. I brewed tea for 2 without meaning to. A habit older than anger. 2 cups. 2 chances. I sat by the window watching the road. Noon was a long way away. Inner voice. You can build walls all your life and still find yourself looking for footsteps outside them. At 11:30, Ruth stopped by. She carried a small plate of oatmeal cookies. For courage, she said. I'm fine, I replied. Fine isn't brave, she said, smiling, but you are. She left before he arrived because some moments are meant to be private, even from those who helped you survive them. At exactly 12 o'clock, tires crunched on gravel. Daniel stepped out of an old, dented pickup truck. He looked thinner, older, dressed in work boots and a faded jacket. A young woman followed him, holding a small boy's hand. The boy couldn't have been more than 4, cheeks full, eyes wide with the kind of curiosity that hasn't yet learned fear. Inner voice. So this is how the world gives you second chances. Shorter, smaller, wearing sneakers. Daniel raised his hand halfway. Hi, Mom. I opened the door. Come in. The living room was cleaner than it had ever been. I hadn't planned it that way. I just kept cleaning since the night they left, a way to remind myself the house was breathing again. The little boy pointed at the old clock on the mantel. It's ticking loud, he said. It's older than your daddy, I told him. He gasped. That's really old. Daniel smiled, shy, cautious. Mom, this is Naomi, and this is Bernard. Bernard, my late husband's name. My eyes burned, but I didn't look away. That's a big name for a little man, I said softly. Naomi smiled nervously. Gregory wanted to honor his father. I hope that's okay. It's more than okay, I said. My voice cracked. It's right. They sat on the couch. Bernard wandered toward the window, fascinated by the light. Naomi spoke first. He's working 2 jobs now. Warehouse at night, deliveries in the morning. He's paying everything back. I wanted you to know that. Daniel stared at the floor. I didn't come here to defend myself, he said quietly. I came because I don't want Bernard to grow up not knowing where he came from, or thinking his father never made things right. I went to the drawer and took out the fireproof folder. I placed it on the table. Everything you signed is here. I keep it not because I don't trust you, but because I finally trust myself. He nodded. You should. I got 18,000 back from the bank, I continued. You've sent 900 so far. The balance is 39,000, give or take. You'll keep paying. I will. And one day, I said, you'll finish, and the last payment won't be money, it'll be truth. He looked up then. His eyes, his father's eyes, were red-rimmed. You don't owe me forgiveness. I know, I said. That's why it means something that I might give it. Naomi reached out, hesitated, then placed her hand over his. He's been trying, Mrs. Cole. Therapy, groups, sobriety meetings. He says you taught him everything good, and he's finally listening. I laughed quietly. He must be exhausted. That took 40 years. Bernard, the small one, ran back to me, holding a drawing, a stick figure house. 2 big people, 1 little one, all smiling. Above it, in uneven letters, home. For you, he said proudly. I took it like a relic. Is that me? Yeah. You're the one with the gray hair. Dad said you're strong. Inner voice, a child's truth cut straighter than any lawyer's evidence. Daniel blinked hard, looking away. Can I put it on your fridge? Bernard asked. Which one? I teased. He giggled. You have two? Not anymore, I said. Only one that matters. I handed him a magnet, shaped like a sunflower. Here, make it official. He climbed onto a chair, pressed the drawing onto the fridge, and stepped back with the pride of a man who'd signed peace between nations. The room felt full, not of guilt, but of air. When Naomi took Bernard to the garden to see the hydrangeas, Daniel stayed behind. I need to tell you something, he said. Sabrina called me last week. She wanted to fix things, but really she wanted money. She's still blaming you for everything. Is she still in town? She left. There's a warrant for the fraud. She's hiding somewhere in Florida. Let her run, I said. Guilt's a long leash. It always drags. He nodded. I told her I was done, that I'd rather sleep in my truck than owe another debt built on lies. For the first time, I believed him. Inner voice. Maybe redemption isn't the opposite of punishment. Maybe it's what's left when punishment finally burns clean. When Naomi and Bernard came back in, I had already set 3 cups on the table. The fourth, the small one with chipped edges, was filled halfway with milk and honey. Bernard climbed into the chair between us. Grandma, can I have cookie? Grandma. The word hit like a gentle earthquake. I smiled. Of course you can, but only one. They're Ruth's, and she counts them. Daniel looked at me. You don't have to let him call you that. I didn't let him, I said. He just did. We drank in silence for a moment, not the heavy silence of years lost, but the kind that hums when hearts start learning how to breathe near each other again. After tea, we walked to the porch. Bernard chased butterflies between the flower pots Ruth had planted. The hydrangeas were taller now, blooming blue and white, small miracles that didn't care about the past. Daniel stood beside me, hands in his pockets. When Dad died, I thought being a man meant never failing, so when I failed, I just hid it. Behind her, behind lies, behind you. You were wrong, I said. Being a man means showing up, even when you're broken. I know that now. He looked out at his son. I don't deserve how kind you're being. You don't, I said, but I'm not being kind for you. I'm doing it for him. I nodded toward Bernard. So he never learns shame as a language. Daniel wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, I said. You still owe $39,000. He laughed, and it sounded like something healing. They left before sunset. The boy waved from the truck window, shouting, Bye, Grandma. See you soon. I waved back until they turned the corner. When the sound of the engine faded, I stood there for a long time. The air smelled of soil and tea, and the faint sweetness of new beginnings. Inside, the drawing still hung crookedly on the fridge. Home. I left it that way. Inner voice. Forgiveness isn't clean lines and straight magnets. It's crooked, fragile, human, and somehow it holds. I went to my room, and opened the window. The evening breeze carried laughter from somewhere far away. I didn't need to know whose it was. It was enough that laughter existed again in the same world as me. On my nightstand sat a photo of Bernard, my husband, holding Daniel as a baby. I touched the glass. He came back, I whispered. Not perfect, but back. The photo didn't answer, but the wind through the hydrangeas did, soft, like applause from the other side of forgiveness. I turned off the lamp. For the first time in years, I slept without locking the door. Revenge gave me back my power. Forgiveness gave me back my peace. And love, the kind that crawls through ashes, gave me back my home.